Evening everybody, welcome back to the channel. I really enjoyed the Oakbank presentation by Dr. Christine Jones that I talked about last week. So I went back and Oakbank had also done a presentation featuring Joel Williams. So I'll include a link to that video below. A lot of Joel's presentation covered literature reviews of multi-species cover crops versus monoculture cover crops. But that's not really what I want to dwell on this evening. I was reviewing some of my field walking videos last week, and there was one from the 23rd of January, which in conjunction with Joel's comments on using cover crops for weed control sparked a conversation with my agronomist, the basis of which I'd like to share with you. So over to our video in the field on the 23rd of January. So I just wanted to point out this observation that I'm making. So this is a grazed mustard cover crop, and as you can see we're standing on the tram line and the spreader obviously spread either side. Now, one thing we noticed was that the spreader was falling off, especially with the mustard at the edge of its spread pattern. It's quite bad that side, so I'm going to pick something that's not quite so obvious. So as we go across the mustard, you'll see that when we get to the dropout area, which it normally is only sort of a couple of meters wide at best, but the population of blackgrass absolutely massive compared to 1, 2, 3, 4 meters next door, much lower. Going backwards again. So we're noticing this across the field. Now, if you're assuming that they quote, was it I think 70 to 80% drop off in germination every year that the seed doesn't grow. So if we'd, in this situation where the seed hasn't grown this autumn, we're getting 80% kill just by virtue of time. So could we use cover crops as a form of weed control, or at least this gives us a method of weed control? So the first paper on weed control Joel shared was by Adewale Ospitan et al., which I'll share a link in the description. It was titled Cover Crops for Early Season Weed Suppression in Crops, Systemic Review and Meta-Analysis. So all that means is that it's having a look at lots of different articles that are reported on the same subject. So the point that Joel made was that overall results indicated that cover crops provided early season weed suppression comparable to that provided by chemical and mechanical weed control methods. However, the decision about selecting the cover crop species, whether broadleaf or grass, and whether it was a mixture or a single species, were not as important as identifying the cover crop with the inherent characteristics that suppress weeds. And the overarching consideration is a high above ground biomass. So the second study was by Roland Gerards, and it's titled Advancing Cover Cropping in Temperate Integrated Weed Management. So the point that Joel picked up on was that cover crops are able to suppress between 70 and 95% of weeds and volunteers in that autumn to spring window between the two cash crops. And in addition, cover crop residues can reduce weed emergence during the early development of the following cash crop by presenting a physical barrier, the American soil armor type approach, and by releasing allelopathic compounds into the soil. So in Joel's presentation, he also used this graph where weed control is achieved by speed of above ground biomass production, providing the maximum weed shading. But then again, in the later period, Joel speculated that a more diverse cover crop with a wider array of allelopathic compounds would achieve better results. So when we were discussing the field results from our mustard and buckwheat stand, that's me and my agronomist, we concluded that the faster growing nature of our mustard has certainly provided that shade and has shaded out the weeds. And this reflects the principle at the front section of Joel's graph. In our discussions, we centered on debating the principle raised in my field video. Had the seed bank been reduced? For example, did the shaded weeds die, or did the shading simply stop them germinating? Are those seeds still sitting dormant in the soil waiting for suitable conditions? We concluded the only way to test the hypothesis was to do a blackgrass germination test of the two areas and see if there was a different rate of blackgrass establishment in the mustard or the blackgrass dominant areas. Now, picking up on the John Kempf type philosophy of we test, don't guess. I acknowledge that there are a number of complicating factors: the time of year, the suppression of other blackgrass plants, secreting hormones. But this is the only way that we came up with to test the theory. However, if I do get a chance to do a comparable germination test, I will share the outcomes with you. And if you have any thoughts on this, I'd love to hear from you. So please put your thoughts in the comments section. That's all for this time. Don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time. Bye.